1992. So exploration or expansion of education sector depends on your mentality. How cordial you are, how you can think, future thinking, visionary thinking. The Department of Primary Education was introduced, and at the same time, the Women Affairs Department was introduced during late President Ziaur Rahman in 1977. In 2002, Begum Khaleda Ji introduced up to higher secondary, education is free for female members, the girl students. So that was what BNP has been trying to do. Now why we are advocating? Unless and until a democratic government is in force, no one is accountable. This government, interim government or caretaker government, no matter what, and even someone is elected in the name of democracy, they are not accountable for the people. They are not accountable to the nations because they don't need people's vote. If you are elected by people's votes, then you have to go to the people again to seek their support. So once you are in power, you have to address the issue of education. So need-based, why? Vocational training, technical training, that is the need. Late President Ziaur Rahman, when unemployment was one of the biggest problem in Bangladesh, he introduced vocational training institute, and the semi-skilled students, they were sent to Middle East as a labor worker or whatever it is. They earned foreign currency. They contributed towards the economy of the country. But now the time is changed. We need to have expertise in different various fields. Technology, IT sector, so many sectors. That is why I think the unified education system completely depends on the mentality of a democratic government. I again thank you all, our members from the electronics and print media. I thank you all, our guests, our discussions. I think their speech will enhance, will enlighten us. I thank you again. Good morning.
Thank you, Ambassador Nasiruddin Hashim, for making your valuable points and also highlighting BNP's track record in Bangladesh education policy over the years, and also highlighting some key achievements. I would like to now invite Dr. Abdullah Al Mamun, Chairman, Democracy Dias Bangladesh, and faculty member, University of Dhaka, to say something valuable for us. Thank you.
Perhaps the immense challenge would be saying something valuable in front of this very esteemed audience. Organizers, guests in the stage, and very esteemed audience, representative of press, and of course a very significant presence of the diplomatic enclave. A very good morning and assalamu alaikum. The title of today's event, if I correctly can summarize, the democracy as the foundation of new need and knowledge-based education. As this is a party event organized by one of their wings, first of all, I would like to appreciate the endeavor, because these kind of auspicious events are rarely organized by the political parties historically. So this is a very significant event from that regard, and I would like to congratulate Bangladesh Nationalist Party. I'm very happy to learn this is the second kind of endeavor in this regard. I tried to reflect on the current announcements, policies, statements, undertakings, and as well as the famous 31 points they announced for the reorganizing the nation, or as their vision when they will be in power, if happens so. And in reviewing so, I tried to find out the main saying they are underlining in their statements. I think the first and the foremost important issue is their 31-point announcement. And on that point 25, they have categorized that they would like to reorganize the education system regardless of primary and higher education, with two mottos, in fact. First one is the need-based education, and second one is the knowledge-based education. And in doing so, it revealed from their statements and political speeches from the top to bottom, particularly from the acting chair, that they would like to increase the education budget from around 1.7% to 5%. That 1.7%, perhaps most of you know that the lowest in South Asia, and lowest again among the LDCs. So this is a remarkable announcement, and I would like to request you, particularly the diplomatic representative, to serious note of it. In this background, I tried to outline that from the documents and the presentations, what they're really trying to say to the public and people nationally and internationally. I think two important points here. First, they're saying that the education should be universal, both in higher and primary education. And the cornerstone of that system would be equitable and futuristic. This is the very important point revealed from my research reviewing their documents and publications, as well as the speeches regularly they're delivering to the media. And the second thing I think they have prioritized is the improving the learning system and making it more international, and learning from local experiences as well as from the development partners and international communities. And third one is very important, having the demographic dividend in front, the achievement of skill-based workforce. The number 4, I think, from their undertakings currently, they're promoting just before the election. The fourth pillar, I think, I tried to identify is the need-based. When they're saying, what is that need-based? My understanding, reading their materials, is more vocational, digital-oriented, and the proficiency of both IT and English language. That is what I understood. Before I move on and evaluate their statements, I would like to draw your attention on a perspective that has been developed by last 15 years. Fascist regime, I'm sorry to bring politics into education, but the headline, but the subject itself says the democratization. I'll spend a minute or so onto that. So if you look at the current state of education, we will have almost 96% of pass rate in primary education. Perhaps it's a world record because it was intentionally promoted that the primary education has been expanded, but the issue was with the quality. And second highlight for you is currently we own 54 public universities and 114 private universities. Regardless, it has huge question, both public and private universities, in terms of the resources, both physical resources, academic resources, and particularly the outputs, because due to their activities, both in primary, secondary, and higher education level, perhaps the country is now having the learning poverty. That can be the terminology can be used by me as an academic. So with that tagline of learning poverty, let me unveil some more of the facts from the last 15 years. The second thing I would like to draw your attention is the internationally, when we are talking about math and science education, the primary graduate are 50%, shown 50% inability in demonstrating their knowledge in English and science. And the final highlight for you is that in terms of the innovation index, after the last 15 years effort of the government, we rank 106 out of 139 countries of the world. So these are the few metrics for you to understand the current state of affairs. I would also like to spend a minute or so about the undertakings of last three BNP regimes, starting from President Ziaur Rahman, his famous point 19 announcement, and where point 11 speaks about the education, and with particular emphasis to rural education. Mr. Hashim has highlighted some of the undertakings of Begum Khaleda Zia. I don't like to spend much time on that, but of course, a few things should be highlighted, otherwise it will be injustice to very capable Prime Minister Begum Khaleda Zia, particularly because of his achievement was internationally promoted, even in the New York Times, for her remarkable achievement to girls' education, private university introduction, meals in the school, food for education, scholarship for the students, and many more. Therefore, you can understand that in the regimes of BNP, they really try to make the education meaningful and also have a holistic approach, regardless of primary, secondary, and higher education, to significantly contribute to the GDP, what we expect by the education. Let me now talk on 5-6 points, and then I will conclude. The first thing, as I said, that it is appreciable by BNP when they have announced that they will invest 5% of the GDP on education. Because historically, as I said, we are never above 1.7 or near 2, or even over 2. And the important thing is that, how do they do it? What I found from their statements and also in the documents, that they would like to give emphasis on the ICT education, technology, internationalization of education, and also education as a catalyst for poverty alleviation. But in doing so, I think the important thing for BNP would be how that budget is spent, because previously we have seen that education budget and the reforms and also the opportunities was grabbed by the party people, and somehow even the minimum budget were not spent correctly. One of the ridiculous things in the world happened when Awami League included ICT and technology budget to education and showed that it is around 12 to 15%, whereas the real budget was 2% or 1.6 or 1.7% continuously. Another important thing, I think, that it should be a departure from the status quo, I think. And what is needed to be done is what Mr. Hashim has said, that salary of the teachers are very poor. And most of the budget invested for the education, in fact, it was for the regular salary, staffing, and little infrastructure development. But significant budget should go to the curriculum development, to the salary, and particularly for the whole renovation of the education, bringing digitalization. And in doing so, I think the most important thing should be, how do you have the accountability mechanism in place, whereas you can show and demonstrate or tell the people that this is the budget we are going to spend, but what would be the accountability mechanism for that? The second issue I think is important, is that when we are talking about, it's a huge disconnect between the Bangladesh national education system and international as well. We are very poor in terms of our curriculum. In relation to the ranking of our primary, secondary, and higher education grades, we are almost half of the equivalence. For example, currently our 12 grades is evaluated as grade 5, grade 6, and our 5th grade is evaluated as class 2 grade internationally. And also our honors and master's degree, those many of you sitting here with international exposure and degrees, we really bumped into a situation where we complete our honors and masters. When it comes to the enrollment in PhD or other degrees, or even having honors, when you try to enroll a master's program, then international universities, particularly good universities of US and UK, they ask you for a foundation course, or even request you for IELTS and other tests. I think this is the important area for BNP to understand and work for the internationalization of education. And the second point in this is what is very important is the collaboration with the international universities. And also, BNP needs to think when they are saying internationalization of education is the cross-border education. The society last many years craved for the presence of international universities in Bangladesh, but particularly because of the private university alliance, they vividly oppose international universities to have a branch campus in Bangladesh. I'm very much in favor of international campuses, particularly because of the successful examples of Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and other ASEAN countries where they invited international universities, and by doing so, they were immensely benefited in renewing their curriculum and as well as have international exposure to their education. This is one of the this can be one of the significant efforts of BNP in internationalizing the education, particularly inviting international universities to Bangladesh. And this will not only facilitate the education, but we can strengthen our relationship with the bilateral partners. We can enhance our diplomatic relations because track to diplomacy is also very important. The fourth point to me is the vocational and understanding the vocational and technical needs. It is well articulated in your documents, and I think in doing so, what we can do that we can not only meet the local demands, where when I'm saying the tagline of my speech is learning poverty, so you can really feed the industries. And also, as we're having the demographic dividend, we can send our skill labors worldwide, and the markets internationally opening, particularly because of the demographic crisis, both in ASEAN countries, North Europe, and other areas. But one thing is important, the recognition of our vocational curriculum. I think we have experimented a lot, and our vocational training center, all the TVET center, particularly under the government, 80 TVET center across the country, are having the problem of international recognition. So it has to be thought that how can it be recognized? We can offer international boards like Cambridge, Edexcel, and other City and Guild and other educational boards who can recognize our vocational degrees. And the fifth one, I think the digital transformation is critical because you will have money. And if you can't transform the education towards the digitalization, and in the era of AI, then it will be a huge regret. So I think it is very important to look at all the aspects and prospects of digitalizing the education. And the sixth one, I think it goes very well with President Ziaur Rahman's motto of rural education, is the decentralization of education. Because currently, most of the facilities are very much centered to the town. And it creates huge inequality. And when you are promoting democracy for education, I think it is a must that you ensure decentralization so that people from all aspects, regardless of towns and villages, have the equal opportunity. So this is very much important for BNP to speak about, even in their manifesto, how they will decentralize their education undertakings in future. And finally, I think this is the most important point relevant to today's roundtable is the affordability. So there is a huge nexus between education and poverty. As the public expenditure is poor in education, so there is a nexus between education expenditure and the poverty. So it has to be investigated and examined enough that how can you reduce that, particularly the burden on the insolvent families to bear the tuition fees, their accommodation, the transformation, even tuition fees in the education institution. Thanks to Begum Khaleda Zia, who made education free for the girls, provided a scholarship. I think this can be a renewed approach from the BNP to ensure affordability of education that will ultimately reduce inequality. This is what is one of the expectations of democracy. And finally, I think whatever you do, one of the issues that we encountered in the last 15 years is the question of accountability, transparency, and of course, your commitment to the people. That would be the most crucial question. What we don't expect that when BNP comes into power and having the 5% expenditure, that will definitely improve the overall environment of the education. But the most important thing would be how would you spend every penny and what would be your accountability mechanism. And in saying so, I think it is very important that you have National Education Evaluation Authority. That will not only keep the record, it should track the outcomes. And what we say in economics that development result management, or there should be a framework to evaluate the results or evaluate the impact or evaluate the money, the impact of the money you spend for the education. Therefore, the recommendation would be to have a National Education Authority that would track the outcome regularly, audit the budget and expenditure, and also measure every impact of the money we spend. Finally, I think in combining the increased budget and also a forward-looking education agenda, Bangladesh Nationalist Party can really fundamentally reshape the approach of human development that I strongly believe. And the potential benefit are immense, of course, and the better education population will not only contribute to higher economic productivity, of course, and innovation, but also help build a more inclusive and democratic society. And we should not forget that quality education promotes gender inequality, gender equity, reduce poverty, and empowers citizens to participate meaningfully in public life and democratically. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah Al-Mamoon, for valuable insights, also putting forward some fresh ideas and identifying key challenges, which we will discuss about a bit later in our Q&A session. In Bangladesh's education sector, one of the key partners over the years has been the development sector, who has played a key role in helping the sector move forward. And hence, I think their perspective mattered. So in that perspective, I would like to invite Safi Rahman Khan, Director, Education, Skills Development and Migration of BRAC, to give his valuable insights.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. Distinguished guests, friends of the media, and the organizers. Again, I'm not sure if I will be, like my previous speaker, providing a lot of valuable insights, but you're putting a lot of pressure on us, Israfil. But I'll give some experience based on BRAC's almost 40 years of work, primarily in non-formal education and in the primary sector. There's a number of issues that's been touched upon and that we all know. But I think one of the issues that we all need to recognize, if we are to progress as a country in a very fast-changing global environment, is that education and health, this is something that all of us need to take responsibility for, all of us need to have a stake in it. It cannot be just one parties, one groups, whether it's development, whether it's political parties, whether it's the state, whether it's private sector. It's all of our responsibilities. Unfortunately, I don't think that has been the case in terms of education and health. I think this is something that we hope can change in the years to come. When BRAC first started in education, this was in the mid-80s, and initially post our independence, our founder, Sir Abid, had started a program for adult literacy. This was around in the early 70s. And over the years, as they were doing this program, there was feedback from the parents, from the community, and from our staff that adult education is all very well, but our children don't have access to schools. In those days, the number of schools was limited. Today we see there's a lot more schools, a lot more options. But in those days, it was very limited. It was primarily government schools, and they weren't as spread out as before. And between 35 to 40% of children were not going to school at that time. So in the mid-80s, we started with non-formal education. It was a one-room school, which we still have today. We recruited a teacher from the community. In many cases, they were maybe at most grade 8 pass, because they were in areas where there was little opportunity for education. We invested a lot in training, and they were responsible for teaching these kids who were not going to school and getting them up to grade 5 level. As the country progressed, we saw a number of investments in education, so the number of primary schools increased. We also had non-state education providers, whether it's the private kindergartens, whether it's faith-based schools, whether it's NGO sector, whatever. So you had a lot more options. And today, depending on the statistics from different government agencies, we can say it's in the mid-90% in terms of enrollment rates. So you don't see a lot of children out of school other than in certain pockets. So for instance, in the wetland areas, in certain indigenous community groups, in urban slums. These are the areas where we have pockets. But by and large, children are going to some school or the other. The issue has become about quality, which everyone, all of us know. Quality is a really fundamental problem in Bangladesh. And if you look at all the assessments that have been done, we are not really progressing. Now, our view, at least my personal view, is that we need to really invest in primary education. Because without getting the foundation right, doing everything beyond that becomes extremely challenging. And this is something that we are seeing in we have a skills program also, where we find that the people who are participating in these skills programs are not being able to get to a certain standard in the time that we expect them to. And it all boils down to the fact that their foundations are very weak. I recently came across a book by an Indian academic who is in Princeton right now, where he has a chapter that he compares Japan in the 1880s and India in 1947 during the partition. And his assertion is that both countries were very similar sort of situations at that time, but Japan invested heavily in quality primary and quality healthcare, whereas India at that time started to look at sort of tertiary education, so the IITs, the IIMs, heavy industry and so forth. So I think there are a lot of lessons that we can take from other countries that have invested in primary education. We don't necessarily have to try and figure everything out by ourselves. So I think what the organizers are doing today, I hope this is a series that is not just limited to this one event, and that we also invite our development partners, our friends from around the world, who may share their lessons in terms of how they have improved primary education in their respective countries. In terms of, I'll just touch upon some of the points that my previous speaker spoke about. Bangladesh has done very important steps, has taken very important steps, particularly in terms of making education free to a certain level. But there are a lot of hidden costs that we don't talk about. So for instance, admission fees, particularly at secondary, are quite prohibitive for the poor. So then we come to a question of equity. You know, is it for everyone or just for those who can afford it? There's the culture of coaching, of tutoring in Bangladesh. It starts even at primary level, in the village. This is a culture that is going to be very challenging to break. So it will require a lot of concerted effort to move away from this coaching culture, because the schools are responsible to teach the children. Unfortunately, and this is not just a phenomenon in Bangladesh, it's even in the West, in the most developed countries, tutoring is a big business. So there's a lot of hidden costs. Technical education, vocational education is extremely important. Just for everyone's knowledge, some of you already know this, I'm sure. In Bangladesh, the workers who go abroad, they pay the highest fees, but they earn the least. And they go for very low-skilled, low-paying jobs. We are trying to develop a program where we upskill them in construction, in caregiving and so forth, and looking at markets abroad. But again, the big challenge comes. The foundation is so weak, it's taking us a lot longer to get them to a certain standard that will be acceptable in the countries that they are going to go to. So we are designing crash programs. These are like 6-month boot camp approach. and we're seeing that they are responding. So it is possible. It's not all negative. Another point that was touched upon was the commitment to raise the percentage of education budget as a percentage of GDP. We know Bangladesh is one of the lowest. It's the lowest in South Asia. It might be one of the lowest in the world. But just raising the budget for the sake of raising the budget is not going to be fruitful. We have something which we have decentralized called the SLIP Fund, the School Level Improvement Plan Fund. And this is given to the primary schools so that they can carry out various improvements in their schools. But do we ask them to actually come up with a plan as to what they will invest in? Is there detailed programming available there that will understand, okay, this is what we need to invest our money in? So without this kind of planning, just raising the budget will not necessarily be productive. Definitely we want the budget to be raised, but we also want this kind of planning to come in. I think the other area that we should recognize, and this is something that is being recognized around the world, is the role of non-formal education. Unfortunately, there is still, both within the people in general, as well as in the ministries and so forth, the non-formal education is not education, it's not proper education. Non-formal education is for those who are not so advantaged and so forth. But non-formal education, lifelong learning, is something that is very, very vibrant in the developed countries. And so this is something that I think is something that also should be looked upon. The non-formal education is given due recognition. And there are certain steps being taken, which we are very happy about. Another area that we can look at, particularly if we want to send workers abroad, is international certification. Bringing the standards of Bangladesh up to international certification. So just to give you an example, the technical school education in Australia's TAFE. TAFE has set up campuses in other countries. So can we look at, in the future, setting up TAFE type centers? Because then if I can get them certified, they will have a much easier pathway to go to jobs abroad, as well as building a quality workforce for the country. The other point that I would like to also stress upon is the importance of government and NGO partnerships in terms of education. A lot of the achievements that have been done by Bangladesh in education, particularly in primary education, has been a collaborative effort. The development partners have provided funding and technical support. NGOs have mobilized and so forth. The state has taken lead on various aspects. So this is something also that I think is very important that we, and there is a framework that has been approved long time ago. There is a framework for government and NGOs to collaborate together. Because like I said, a lot of things cut across all politics, all groupings, all stakeholders, you know, and education and health are two of those. Community accountability. This is another area that we need to focus on. How do we build mechanisms where the community has a stake, has a say in their children's education? It cannot just be left to the school and the teachers. If you look at all the countries that are doing this well, the community engages with the schools, with the teachers. So can we have a mechanism whereby the community brings in certain checks and balances in terms of how schooling, how education is rolled out? And I think there is some research on this. It's a very small research done by SOAS in England and Brack University, where they found, and again, it's a very small sample size, but they found that when you had parent-teachers associations, school management committees, influential community members taking an interest in the school, those schools perform better. So the evidence is there. If you look at the numbers, I'll wrap it up soon now. If you look at the numbers in terms of, from say last 15 years ago, the portion of children in primary education in government primary schools was over 80%. It is now 52, 53%. There's been a 30% drop. If this is the trend that happens, then we will see further erosion of children in government primary schools. When we talk about equity, when we talk about inclusion, it is very important that we provide access to everyone. And it cannot only be that those who are unable to afford it do not have access to good schooling. So I think this is another area where it makes sense to invest in government education system. And lastly, I would say that leadership is extremely important, not just at the political level, but also at the ministry and bureaucracy. If you do not have dynamic leadership, we can have the best policies, we can have the best intentions. Implementation will be a challenge. Bangladesh has a lot of good policies. We have a lot of good laws. But the challenge has always been, how do we implement it? How do we implement it well so that it is inclusive, it is equitable, and it is of a standard that we can be proud of, and that we will feel proud to send our children to government school, non-government schools, whatever they be, but that the standards are equitable, are inclusive, and the same for everyone. And with that, I'd like to end my few words. I hope there are some ideas that will generate some conversations for this roundtable. Thank you.
Thank you, Safi Rahman Khan, for your interesting perspectives, and I think bringing some very key topics in as well, and especially in terms of international certification, and also one of the you've also talked about quality, ensuring quality, and also the issue of resource mobilization, which is a very important key factor. Again, we'll have a Q&A session later, so we'll just move on to our next speaker. Also, Dr. Monora Mohamed Yusuf has joined our event today, so I'll welcome you. Now I'd like to go on to our next speaker, which is Dr. Nahareen Khan, Professor, Department of Geography and Environment, Jamia University, and looking forward to your insight. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum and very good morning to all of you. Actually, the first question Mamun Bhai asked me today, that why I came with my laptop. Actually, I have two answers for that. One is I teach environment, so I don't want to print so many papers, which is environment friendly. And the second thing is I'm very proud to introduce myself as a member of BNP's Education Policy Reformation, and our next goal, our acting chairman, also he has the motto to introduce environment-friendly education system in Bangladesh. So as per the given 31 points by the Honorable Acting Chairman, oh, I think I forgot my second answer. My second answer is like, I'm an old lady with 21 years of experience of teaching in university, so memorizing thing is a bit problem for me, so that's why I came up with my laptop here. So as per the given 31 points by the Honorable Acting Chairman and BNP itself, the point 24, 25, 26 and 31st, they have direct implication with the education reformation. We used to know knowledge is power, right? Of course knowledge is power. Being a professor of a university, I still believe knowledge is power, but after the COVID, after the fourth industrial revolution and the readiness of the LDC graduation, the knowledge is not only about just survival, but the skills these days, right? So knowledge is skill. So the best of the given situation, our Honorable Acting Chairman has shown his immense interest and his prudent thought to talk about the skills along with the knowledge. So combining that, one of the selling points is introducing third language at the school and the university level. So I'm not getting that much time to talk about entire education policy of BNP at this moment, but let me talk about one of the finest proposal I see and I can foresee the impact of third language concept of social and economical implication. The point 26 on educational reform contains comprehensive curriculum restructurization and that implicitly supports multilingual education. Additionally, our Honorable Vice Acting Chairman directly quotes bridges this policy gap. He said, "We want to revamp the school syllabus. It will introduce sports and second or third language. There will be separate marks in the exam for that." That means one student have to do sports, have to learn third language. We will introduce it. So these statements represents BNP's commitment to integrating third language learning into mandatory curriculum with dedicated assessment, making it a core educational requirement rather than an optional subject. So now we can talk about what are the social implications of third language learning. There are a lot of benefits. Most of them you are from outside of this country, so you know what is the benefit of learning third language. Third language proficiency transforms student into a cultural ambassador, permit deeper engagement with diverse communities both domestically and internationally. In Bangladesh's ethnically diverse landscape, multilingual competency fosters national unity while respecting linguistic minorities. Currently, foreign language proficiency remains largely concentrated among Bangladeshi elite classes. BNP's mandatory third language policy democratizes access to linguistic skills, potential reducing educational inequality and expanding social mobility opportunities for students from all economic backgrounds. And what are the economic implementations of third language learning? Economy of Bangladesh is based on 3 R's. We all know that. One is ready-made garments, second one is rice, and third one is remittance. Still, we are struggling to get a quality remittance. Research demonstrates concrete financial benefits of multilingualism. In various international contexts, bilingual workers earn 3.6 to 6.6 more than monolingual peers. Bangladesh's 170 million population represent enormous untapped potential for monetizing language skill. Third language proficiency directly addresses Bangladesh's employment crisis by creating globally competitive human capital. As the country transitions from labor-intensive to skill-based economy, multilingual workers became essential for accessing international markets, foreign investment, and technology transfers. Almost we have 10 million people outside of Bangladesh. The amount of money they send and the remittance we receive is not enough. Whereas we could get 3 to 4 times more remittance if we could only learn a third language based on the particular market demands. Currently, 92% of Bangladeshi migrants work in Asia with only 5% in Europe. Strategic third language education, particularly European language like German, French, Spanish, could increase European migration from 5 to 25% within a decade, significantly boosting remittance flow and reducing dependence on Middle Eastern markets. So, even if you know only German, this language proficiency alone opens access to Europe's largest economy and key trading partnership, as German remains the primary trading partner for most of the European countries. So following Tariq Rahman's third language learning would be embedded from primary levels with dedicated examination marks ensuring systematic skill development rather than superficial exposure. So there are a lot of economic sectors benefits like garments and manufacturing. Buyer can direct communicate with the European buyers, IT service, access to German, French and Spanish speakers market, tourism, education and training. So strategic third language education positions Bangladesh to capture high value service exports, reduce brain drain through domestic opportunities and transform its demographic dividend into genuine economic advantage through skilled multilingual workforce development. The BNP's third language policy represents not merely educational reform but economic transformation strategy, converting Bangladesh's human capital into globally competitive assets while fostering inclusive social development through democratized linguistic access. Now, I have a bad news for Oshim Bhai. Oshim Bhai said this morning that there are 2 universities in Bangladesh having world ranking between 1 and 500. But this morning, I have a very heavy heart to see a news where it says that no university in Bangladesh has ranked in between 1 and 500 in world ranking. World Bank No, this is the today's news, and ranking is always changing, like you know. And the second one is World Bank says our 11th grade student standards are equivalent to the 7th grade in international standards. Singapore considered our undergrad standard as the same of their foundation course. And the last one is Bangladeshi MBBS, the medical study, doesn't get the approval from World Federation of Medical Education, WFME. I want to say something that I'm always very punctual, but today I was late. You know why I'm late? Because I have some vision problems, so I have my new spectacles. So if you really want to reform your education system, you need a very good spectacle that through that lens, you can see every bit of the problems. And I think BNP is working for educational reformation and which will be completely beneficial for our future generation. So let's hope for the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Naren Khan. Some interesting perspective there and some very dismal statistics. But we would like to be hopeful. Bangladesh Nationalist Party as a hopeful party. So we look forward to a bright future. Now, I would like to open the floor for some questions or comments. Please free to ask questions and make any comment, please. Thank you. The floor is open now.
Thank you. This is Moazzam from BRAC. It's a privilege to be part of this great roundtable discussion, which might be turned into a great manifesto of a political party to move forward a great Bangladesh in the future. So my particular question to the panelists, one panelist rightly mentioned about the learning poverty. So probably you all are aware that the National Student Assessment from 2022 shows us still students are struggling with their Bangla reading proficiency. And on the contrary, when we are listening, there is a third language policy is coming through the next manifesto of BNP's election mandate. So how we would balance in between these two? The learning poverty one is struggling with the Bangla reading proficiency as well as the foundational literacy and numeracy. Still our primary graders are struggling, and we are going to introduce also the third language policy, how we will be bringing this balance in between these two. So this is one question. And secondly, probably we all notice that currently STEM education is gradually decreasing. The trend is decreasing. So mostly people are, when they are graduating, they are not preferring science education or math education, and whoever graduating from STEM stream, they are also going abroad for the better livelihood opportunities. So how we can attract this and resist this brain drain? What policy we can bring into this manifesto? That is also another question to the panelists. Thank you.
Mike's over there. Mohan Bhai, would you like to answer?
Very quickly on reflect on the second point.
Right.
Yes, you're absolutely correct in terms of your reference to the reading habit of both English and Bangla. This is unfortunate, and I touched upon the point about the pass rate, particularly in the primary education level, which was near to 100. And secondly, no investment particularly have been made properly. Investments were made, but due to the corruption and the nexus between the education administration and the politician, the money has been grabbed. The reason to me is one of the issue I've said, that quality teaching and the curriculum. But the second issue, we have to remember all the investment mostly went to the infrastructure, because regardless of foreign aid or even the money came from the government invested in the education was properly utilized. So it went to infrastructure, having the understanding that it will be enjoyed by the politician and the contractor in the nexus. So infrastructure was not properly built. And second point, in fact, raised by Oshim Bhai in the morning, that investment didn't go to the good quality teachers. And also, I touched upon on the learning poverty, what I said, that due to the inability of the parents to provide tuition to their students was another reason. So on the one hand, we didn't have the proper teachers in the primary schools. And secondly, poor families do not have the money to provide extra tuition to their children. So I think these are the two reasons should be looked upon when BNP will be expending 5% of the GDP to the education. Going to your second point of brain drain, I forgot to mention in the morning, I think one of the prerequisites to reinvigorate the education of Bangladesh would be to academia-industry relationship. And it is very important to understand. I think I'm very happy to have one of the members of BNP's Education Reform Committee beside me to have a serious look into the matter, that how can they improve academia-industry relationship. In doing so, on the one hand, you will understand the need of the industry. On the other hand, you can then improve your curriculum. In doing so, employment rate can be enhanced. The brain drain can be protected, because the young scholars or young student would know that there are opportunities for us if we have appropriate skills, and the curriculum is well matched with the industries. Look, when we talk about the brain drain, there are a number of workers from India and Sri Lanka are working in our ready-made garment sector and other export sectors. But unfortunately, our graduates are going outside. So this is a missing link. So if this area could be reviewed, I think good opportunities would reveal for the stream student, you said. So this is very important to develop academia-industry relationship, and a mechanism is I think it should be a must for the next government.
Thank you so much for your nice question. I just wanted to answer the third language thing. Actually, in Bangladesh, we always learn a third language, which is Arabic, through our religious class. So our proposal would be like that we will not gonna learn Arabic as a part of religion. So we will learn it as a separate language. And you are absolutely right that, like, you know, we have a different sort of like educational system in Bangladesh. Like whatever we see in Dhaka or very privileged group, we can't see in Bheramara Chagolnaya, right? So those are the basic differences. But you know that last 17 years, like the previous government, they made a sort of thing which called like Srijanshil Shikha, like creative learning, and that made our students most like it's a very bad thing they introduced. So actually right now we are working on the BNP's like education policy reform, but for like betterment of our policy, I cannot disclose everything right now, but just to tell you that through this educational policy, we will generate a huge number of like employment through the education system, and we will introduce the joyful education for kids, that no kids will stay in the morning that I don't want to go to school, I have like a stomach ache, you know, someone like invisible stomach ache we all had in the morning when we had like school time, right? So actually I cannot like tell every bit of this policy right now, but just to give you a hope that third language learning would be a mandatory, and I think we will implement it. Thank you.
Thank you to our panelists for some very sharp responses and to the point responses to the question. I think one of the three things that key points that have come up in all our speakers is the importance of primary education, vocational education, and the third language. I think we will all agree these are one of the three components that we need to integrate within our education system and focus on, stress on. I would now like to move on to our next speaker. I would like to invite Maulana Muhammad Yusuf, Assistant Organizing Secretary of International Qiraat Foundation, Bangladesh. Madrasas are a very key, extremely key component of our education system, and their perspectives matter. So it is, I would like to invite Maulana Muhammad Yusuf up to the podium to say his, or to give his valuable insight on the matter.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. قال الله تبارك وتعالى: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قل هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون إنما يتذكر أولو الألباب. وقال الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم: خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. وقال الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم أيضا: طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم ومسلمة، أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. আজকের এই গোল টেবিলে আমন্ত্রিত বিভিন্ন পর্যায়ের মেহমানবৃন্দ, সুধীবৃন্দ, আয়োজকবৃন্দ এবং আমার সম্মানিত সাংবাদিকবৃন্দ, সকলকে আন্তরিক অভিনন্দন এবং শুভেচ্ছা জানিয়ে আমি সংক্ষেপে কিছু কথা এখানে উপস্থাপন করার চেষ্টা করব ইনশাআল্লাহ। সম্মানিত সুধী, আমরা এটা খুব ভালো করে জানি যে শিক্ষাই জাতির মেরুদণ্ড। একটা শিক্ষিত জাতি মানে একটা শিক্ষিত সমাজ, একটা সুন্দর দেশ, একটা সুন্দর পরিবেশ। শিক্ষার অভাবের কারণেই একটা জাতি বিনষ্ট হয়ে যেতে বেশি সময় লাগে না। এই জন্য শিক্ষার গুরুত্ব অপরিসীম, এটা আমরা সবাই খুব অন্তর দিয়ে অনুভব করি। তো আমি আমাদের বাংলাদেশে যে শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা চালু আছে তার উপর ভিত্তি করে দু একটা কথা বলতে চাই। আমাদের বাংলাদেশে শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা তিনটা ধারায় বিভক্ত। একটা ধারা হচ্ছে সাধারণ এডুকেশন, সাধারণ শিক্ষা, যেখানে স্কুল, কলেজ, ইউনিভার্সিটির যে পড়াশোনা। আরেকটা ধারা হচ্ছে যে ইসলামী শিক্ষা এবং সাধারণ শিক্ষার সমন্বয়। এই দুইটার সমন্বয়ে একটা শিক্ষাধারা আমাদের দেশে চালু আছে, যেটাকে আমরা আলিয়া মাদ্রাসার শিক্ষা হিসাবে জানি। আমাদের দেশে আরেকটা শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা চালু আছে, সেটাকে কওমি ধারার শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা বলে, যেখানে শুধুমাত্র কোরআন হাদিসের পরিপূর্ণ জ্ঞান অর্জন করার সুবিধা আছে। এই শিক্ষাধারাটাও আমাদের দেশে সমানভাবে চালু আছে। আমি কওমি ধারার শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা সম্পর্কে কিছু কথা আপনাদের সামনে উপস্থাপন করতে চাই। কওমি ধারার শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থাটা মূলত এদেশের যারা ইসলাম প্রিয় মানুষ, যারা নিজেদেরকে একেবারেই আল্লাহর জন্য, আল্লাহ রসুলের জন্য, পরকালের জন্য প্রস্তুত করতে চান, যারা চান যে আমি পরকালের জীবনে পরিপূর্ণ সফলতা অর্জন করতে চাই, তারা এই শিক্ষাটা অর্জন করেন। এবং এই শিক্ষার বিষয়টা হচ্ছে যে কোরআন এবং হাদিসের একদম পরিপূর্ণ জ্ঞান অর্জন করা, কোরআনের ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ, হাদিসের ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ শেখা, এর সাথে আনুষঙ্গিক যে জ্ঞানগুলো রয়েছে, বিভিন্ন জ্ঞানগুলো অর্জন করা, এটাই এই শিক্ষার মূল বিষয়বস্তু। কওমি মাদ্রাসার শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থাপনায় কয়েকটা স্তর রয়েছে, এর মধ্যে প্রাথমিক স্তরটাও রয়েছে। এই প্রাথমিক স্তরে অন্যান্য স্কুলগুলোতে বা আলিয়া মাদ্রাসাগুলোতে যেভাবে ক্লাস 5 পর্যন্ত একটা পড়াশোনার পর্যায় রয়েছে, তো কওমি মাদ্রাসাতেও এরকম 5ম শ্রেণী পর্যন্ত, ক্লাস 5 পর্যন্ত একটা পর্যায় রয়েছে। এই পর্যায়গুলোতে কওমি মাদ্রাসাতে কোরআনের তেলাওয়াত শেখার পাশাপাশি, কিছু হাদিস মুখস্থ করার শেখার পাশাপাশি সাধারণ যে পড়াশোনা আছে, বাংলা, অঙ্ক, ইংরেজি, ভূগোল, ইতিহাস ইত্যাদি, এগুলো কওমি মাদ্রাসাতে ক্লাস 5 পর্যন্ত পড়ানো হয়। ক্লাস 5-এর পরেও আরও 2-3টা শ্রেণী পর্যন্ত বাংলা, ইংরেজি ইত্যাদি রাখা হয়েছে, যেন বাচ্চারা সমসাময়িক সমাজের মানুষের সাথে, যেন এই শিক্ষায় শিক্ষিত লোকেরা এ সমাজের মানুষের সাথে কথাবার্তা বলতে পারেন, ওঠা বসা করতে পারেন, চলাফেরা করতে পারেন। সর্বোপরি আমরা এটা জানি, এই মাদ্রাসা থেকে শিক্ষিত লোকেরাই কিন্তু সমাজে একটা বিষয়ে নেতৃত্ব দিচ্ছেন। সেই বিষয়টা হচ্ছে এই, মানুষকে আদর্শ মানুষ হিসেবে গড়ে তোলার জন্যে, কল্যাণমুখী মানুষ হিসাবে গড়ে তোলার জন্যে, মানুষকে দেশপ্রেমিক জনগণ হিসাবে গড়ে তোলার জন্য যে শিক্ষাটা মৌলিকভাবে দরকার, এদেশের ওলামায়ে কেরাম যারা এই কওমি মাদ্রাসার শিক্ষিত লোকজন, তারা কিন্তু এই সেবাটা দিয়ে যাচ্ছেন। এজন্য জনগণের সাথে সম্পৃক্তির জন্যে, জনগণকে নিজেদের কথাগুলো বোঝানোর জন্যে, নিজেদের বক্তব্যগুলো পেশ করার জন্যে, এজন্য প্রাথমিক লেভেলে শিশুদেরকে বা ছাত্রদেরকে বাংলা, অঙ্ক, ইংরেজি কিছু পড়ানো হয়, যেন সুন্দরভাবে তারা উপস্থাপন করতে পারেন, যেন সকল বক্তব্যগুলো জনগণের কাছে পৌঁছে দিতে পারেন। আমরা লক্ষ্য করলেই দেখব যে দেশের যারা কওমি মাদ্রাসা থেকে শিক্ষিত ওলামায়ে কেরাম, এদেশের বিভিন্ন মসজিদে, বিভিন্ন মাদ্রাসা, বিভিন্ন ওয়াজ মাহফিলে তারা কিন্তু এই দায়িত্বটুকু অত্যন্ত সুচারুরূপে, সুষ্ঠুভাবে পালন করে যাচ্ছেন। তো সেই হিসাবে কওমি মাদ্রাসার অবদান এদেশের মানুষের উপরে একেবারে অপরিসীম একটা অবদান রয়েছে, অনস্বীকার্য একটা অবদান রয়েছে। সেই অবদানকে স্বীকার করতে হবে। তো কওমি মাদ্রাসা আসলে পরিচালিত হয় এদেশের মানুষের সহযোগিতার মাধ্যমেই পরিচালিত হয়। বিভিন্ন মাদ্রাসা প্রতিষ্ঠান যেগুলো রয়েছে, এদেশের মানুষের সহযোগিতা এটা পরিচালিত হয়ে আসে। সরকারি সাহায্য খুবই কমই থাকে, এর মধ্যে সাধারণ মানুষের সহযোগিতাই চলে। একটা কথা এখানে মনে রাখতে হবে, আমাদের দেশের যারা কিছু অবহেলিত শ্রেণী রয়েছে, যাদের থাকার ইন্তজাম নাই, খাওয়ার পড়ার ব্যবস্থাপনা নাই, এতিম অসহায় শিশু যারা অবহেলিত শ্রেণী, এরকম একটা শ্রেণীদেরকে কিন্তু কওমি মাদ্রাসায় এটার একটা আশ্রয়নও বলা যেতে পারে, যে তাদের আশ্রয়ের একটা ব্যবস্থা করা হয়। এতিমদের, দরিদ্র শিশুদের, দরিদ্র ছাত্রদের আশ্রয়নের একটা ব্যবস্থা রাখা হয়েছে। সেখানে ছাত্ররা থাকা, খাওয়া সব কিছু তারা ফ্রি পায়, এবং সেখানে তারা খাওয়া দাওয়া করে, পড়াশোনা করে সেখান থেকে একটা শিক্ষা অর্জন করতে পারে, এবং দেশের বড় ধরনের একটা খেদমতে তারা এগিয়ে যেতে পারে। সুতরাং একটা গণতান্ত্রিক সরকার যদি এই সেক্টরটাকে আরও একটু গুরুত্ব দেয়। যেমন এর আগে এই কওমি মাদ্রাসা সনদ স্বীকৃতি দেওয়া হয়েছে বটে, কিন্তু এটাকে কার্যকরভাবে এখন পর্যন্ত সেটা প্রতিষ্ঠিত হয়ে ওঠেনি। যদি গণতান্ত্রিক সরকার আসে, গণতান্ত্রিক সরকার এটাকে মূল্যায়ন করে গুরুত্ব দেয়, তাহলে এদেশে এই সেক্টর থেকে অর্থাৎ কওমি ধারার থেকে যে জনগণ উঠে আসবে সেটা এদেশের মানুষের কল্যাণের জন্যে, এদেশের মানুষের মুক্তির জন্যে, এদেশের মানুষের সব ধরনের সমস্যা সমাধানের জন্য সুন্দর পরামর্শ দিতে পারেন, এদেশের মানুষের কল্যাণের জন্যে বিভিন্ন রকমের ভূমিকা রাখতে পারেন, এদেশের মানুষের রাজনীতি, অর্থনীতি, সমাজনীতিতে তারা একটা ভালো ব্যাপক একটা ভূমিকা রাখার সুযোগ তাদের রয়েছে। আমরা যদি গণতান্ত্রিক সরকার থেকে আমরা এটা চাইব যে এই সেক্টরটাকে যদি মূল্যায়ন করা হয়, গুরুত্ব দেওয়া হয়, তাহলে তারা দেশের বড় একটা সেবা তারা বিভিন্ন ক্ষেত্রে দিতে পারেন। আমি এই পর্যায়ে একটা দাবি রাখব পরবর্তী গণতান্ত্রিক সরকারের কাছে, যে স্কুল লেভেল পর্যন্ত, যেখানে আমাদের বাংলাদেশের প্রায় 90% মুসলমান, ইসলামী শিক্ষার গুরুত্ব তাৎপর্য এটা এই মুহূর্তে আমি আলোচনা করছি না। ইসলামী শিক্ষার গুরুত্ব তাৎপর্য অপরিসীম। আল্লাহ রাব্বুল আলামিন পবিত্র কোরআনে বলছেন, শিক্ষিত জাতি আর শিক্ষিত জাতি, শিক্ষিত মানুষ আর অশিক্ষিত মানুষ কখনোই সমান হতে পারে না। এটা আল্লাহ রাব্বুল আলামিন কোরআনে বলছেন যে কুল হাল ইয়াস্তাবিল্লাযীনা ইয়ালামুন, যারা শিক্ষিত এবং যারা শিক্ষিত না তারা কখনো সমান হতে পারেন না। তো সেই হিসাবে ইসলামী শিক্ষা শিক্ষিত মানুষের একটা আলাদা গুরুত্ব রয়েছে, একটা তাৎপর্য রয়েছে। আমি দাবি করব এটা যে প্রাথমিক পর্যায়ে, একদম সকল পর্যায়ে, অর্থাৎ প্রাইমারি লেভেলে সাধারণ শিক্ষায় এবং আলিয়া মাদ্রাসার লাইনে এবং কওমি মাদ্রাসার লাইনে সকল শিক্ষার ক্ষেত্রে, সকল পর্যায়ের ক্ষেত্রে ইসলামী শিক্ষাটাকে যদি বাধ্যতামূলক করা যায়, যে কোরআন শিখবে, দিন শিখবে, আল্লাহ রসুল শিখবে, যেহেতু এদেশের 90% মুসলমান, তারা যদি ইসলামী শিক্ষা শিক্ষিত হয়ে ওঠে তাহলে তার একটা প্রভাব তার গোটা জীবনে থাকবে। ওই প্রভাবের উপর ভিত্তি করে সে একজন আদর্শ মানুষ হবে, আদর্শ নাগরিক হবে, সুনাগরিক হবে, দেশের জন্য কল্যাণকর নাগরিক হিসাবে গড়ে উঠবে বলে আমি মনে করি। আমি এই বলে আমি আমার বক্তব্য শেষ করছি। ওয়া আখিরু দাওয়ানা আলহামদুলিল্লাহি রাব্বিল আলামিন।
ধন্যবাদ মৌলানা ইউসুফ সাহেব। Just for everyone's knowledge, I'm going to do a quick translation and help Mr. Maulana, but the detailed translation we'll share with you after this event. Maulana Yusuf has started. Assalamu alaikum to everybody, all members of the media, present guests and panelists, and wishing everybody a good morning and a good day. He has mentioned that we have, he said today's education is the spine of any society. When the spine stays strong, the society remains strong. If the spine is affected, the society is affected. And anytime you've seen a lack of education or progress, you've seen the destruction of any civilization, mentioning how powerful education is to any society. In Bangladesh, we have 3 different systems of education. One system is the traditional Bangla medium method taught in government schools. Another system is called the Alia Madrasa system, which is a combination of the traditional curriculum and the religious curriculum. And another system is the Qawmi Madrasa curriculum, which is more based on the Quranic teachings as well as teachings from the Hadith. Today, Mr. Maulana Yusuf, are representing the Qawmi Madrasa education system. In the Qawmi Madrasa education system, the primary way of teaching is based on the Quran and the Hadith, but of course the traditional education curriculum is not neglected either, especially after class 5. After class 5, why do we focus more on English, Bangla and traditional curriculum? Is so that the students of the Qawmi Madrasa can graduate to be members of society as well as contributing members of society. Those contributing members who focus primarily on ethics, values, and morality. This will be the basis of the Qawmi Madrasa education system. Qawmi Madrasa education system also focuses on the marginalized people of society, orphans, people under the poverty line where the government support is lacking or the government system does not reach them. They are the people who the Qawmi Madrasa takes in under boarding system, provides them with shelter as well as safety, of course along with the education that they provide. It is his hope that a democratic government comes into Bangladesh very quickly and gives utmost attention to the Qawmi Madrasa system along with the overall education system that we're discussing today. Through a democratic government's attention to the Qawmi Madrasa system, can the Qawmi Madrasa graduates become a part of mainstream society as well as become a contributing member to the mainstream society. It is my firm belief that Qawmi Madrasa graduates have a lot more to contribute to society if given the chance. I would like to demand on the next government that they provide more aid and more support to the Qawmi Madrasa system, and because Allah has also mentioned that there's a big difference between an educated person and an uneducated person. So we would like to, in the name of God and in the teachings of Allah, see that every student in the future Bangladesh is educated, and that is the demand I have on the future government which may take over. That was my quick translation of Maulana Yusuf's speech today in Bangla, and as I said, we will share the details after this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabir, for the quick translation. I would like to quickly invite Shaykh Saifullah Madani, who's a representative of the Bangladesh Qawmi Madrasa Education Board, to say his bit quickly, and supplement Mr. Yusuf's points as well. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. বাংলাদেশের অগ্রযাত্রার পথ প্রয়োজন ভিত্তিক ও জ্ঞান ভিত্তিক শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থার ভিত্তি হিসেবে গণতন্ত্র শীর্ষক সেমিনারের সম্মানিত উপস্থিতি, আজকের এই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ আলোচনায় আমি একজন ইসলামী প্রতিনিধি হিসেবে কিছু কথা রাখার সুযোগ পেয়ে অত্যন্ত কৃতজ্ঞতা প্রকাশ করছি। সময় যেহেতু খুবই সংক্ষিপ্ত, কাজেই খুব দীর্ঘ কথা বলার সুযোগ নেই। বাংলাদেশের ঐতিহাসিক প্রেক্ষাপট বলে আমাদের জাতি একটি সংগ্রামী জাতি। ভাষা আন্দোলন থেকে মুক্তিযুদ্ধ প্রতিটি অধ্যায়ে আমরা শিক্ষা, গণতন্ত্র ও ন্যায় বিচারের দাবিকে কেন্দ্রবিন্দুতে দেখেছি। স্বাধীনতার ঘোষণাও বলা হয়েছিল জনগণের অধিকার প্রতিষ্ঠা, ন্যায়ভিত্তিক সমাজ গঠন এবং শিক্ষা ও উন্নয়নের সমতা আনাই হবে আমাদের ভবিষ্যৎ। কিন্তু দুঃখজনকভাবে আজও শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা ও গণতন্ত্র কাঙ্ক্ষিত লক্ষ্যে পৌঁছতে পারেনি। কিন্তু কেন? এটি হলো গণতন্ত্র ও স্থিতিশীল সরকারের অভাব। একটি রাষ্ট্র তখনই টেকসই উন্নয়নের পথে এগিয়ে যেতে পারে যখন তার শাসন ব্যবস্থা স্থিতিশীল থাকে। স্থিতিশীল সরকার ছাড়া দীর্ঘমেয়াদী পরিকল্পনা গ্রহণ ও বাস্তবায়ন করা অসম্ভব প্রায়। অভিজ্ঞতার আলোকে আমরা দেখেছি, যখন অনির্বাচিত সরকার ক্ষমতায় থাকে এবং দীর্ঘমেয়াদী হয়, তখন তারা স্বৈরাচারী হয়ে ওঠে, জনগণের মত ও অধিকারকে উপেক্ষা করে, জনমতের তোয়াক্কা না করে শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থায় দলীয়করণ, প্রশ্ন ফাঁস, নিয়োগ বাণিজ্যের মতো অসংখ্য দুর্নীতিতে জড়িয়ে পড়ে। ফলে অনির্বাচিত সরকার দীর্ঘমেয়াদী হলে শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থার মুখ থুবড়ে পড়ে। আমরা বিগত আমলে দেখেছি, সপ্তম শ্রেণীর ইতিহাস ও সামাজিক বিজ্ঞান বইয়ে শরীফ থেকে শরীফা হওয়ার কাল্পনিক গল্প যুক্ত করার মতো বিষয়, শিশুদের পাঠ্যপুস্তকে বিকৃত যৌনতা, সমকামিতা, ট্রান্সজেন্ডার ও তৃতীয় লিঙ্গ নিয়ে আপত্তিকর বিষয়, বিকাশবাদ বা বিবর্তনবাদের মতো অযৌক্তিক বিষয়, যেমন বানর থেকে মানব সম্পর্কিত বিষয়, বিজ্ঞান বইয়ে কিছু অংশ সরাসরি ইন্টারনেট থেকে নকল করা, এমনকি গুগল ট্রান্সলেটের সাহায্যে অনুবাদ করা, সবই প্রমাণিত সত্য। পাঠ্যপুস্তকে ইতিহাসের বিকৃতি, ধর্মীয় অনুভূতিতে আঘাত ও মিথ্যা তথ্যের জন্য তৎকালীন সময়ে বিএনপি সহ অন্যান্য রাজনৈতিক দল ও শিক্ষাবিদগণ প্রতিবাদ জানিয়েছিল এবং অনেক বিষয়ই তখন পাঠ্যপুস্তক থেকে বাদ দেওয়া হয়েছিল। তবে অন্তর্বর্তীকালীন সরকার একটি অস্থায়ী সরকার হলেও তাদের প্রতি আমাদের আশা প্রত্যাশা ছিল অনেক বেশি। বাস্তবতা হচ্ছে অন্তর্বর্তীকালীন সরকার দেশের নির্বাচনের পূর্ববর্তী বা মধ্যবর্তী সময়ে দায়িত্ব গ্রহণ করে, সেই হিসাবে এই সরকারও তাদের কার্যক্রমকে সেভাবেই সীমিত করেছে। এমনকি অনেক ক্ষেত্রে তারা এনজিও নির্ভর সরকারে রূপান্তরিত হয়েছে, যা আমাদের জন্য বড়ই দুঃখজনক। আবহমান কালচারে বাংলাদেশ যেভাবে যে গতিতে চলে আসছে, তাতে একটি সম্প্রীতি সৌহার্দ্য ছিল, যা এনজিও নির্ভরতার কারণে আমাদের এই জায়গাগুলো বাধাগ্রস্ত হচ্ছে, সম্প্রীতি বিনষ্ট হচ্ছে। গবেষণা বলে অনির্বাচিত সরকারের প্রতি জনমতের ভিত্তি না থাকায় আমলাতান্ত্রিক জটিলতা তৈরি হয়, প্রশাসন অকার্যকর হয়, ফলে শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা ও সামাজিক খাতে দীর্ঘমেয়াদী উন্নয়ন পরিকল্পনা বাধাগ্রস্ত হয়। শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থার সংকট তৈরি হয়। এই যাত্রা দীর্ঘ হলে একটি প্রজন্ম শিক্ষার মতো সুমহান অধিকার থেকে বঞ্চিত হয়। বাংলাদেশের মৌলিক সমস্যাগুলো যদি আমি সংক্ষেপে বলি, 1 নম্বর বিষয় হচ্ছে শিক্ষার বৈষম্য। শহর ও গ্রামের মধ্যে শিক্ষার ব্যবধান, ইংরেজি মাধ্যম, বাংলা মাধ্যম ও মাদ্রাসা শিক্ষার বিভাজন। চাকরিমুখী শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা, শিক্ষা শুধু চাকরির উপর নির্ভর করে আমরা বাংলাদেশের শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থাকে পরিচালনা করছি, যা জ্ঞান নির্ভর নয়, বাস্তব জীবনের চাহিদা পূরণে অনেক ক্ষেত্রেই অক্ষম। গণতন্ত্রের সংকট, গণতন্ত্রের অংশগ্রহণ ও জবাবদিহিতার ঘাটতি দুর্নীতি ও রাজনৈতিক অস্থিরতার একটি অন্যতম কারণ হিসেবে আমরা বিবেচিত করতে পারি। শিক্ষা থেকে নৈতিকতা ও মূল্যবোধকে আলাদা করার ফলে তরুণ সমাজ অনেকটাই হতাশাগ্রস্ত। এক্ষেত্রে ইসলাম শিক্ষা ও গণতন্ত্র এই দুটোকে অবিচ্ছেদ্য করে রেখেছে। যেমন কোরআন কারীমে প্রথম শব্দ যে আয়াতটি নাজিল হয়েছে ইকরা, অর্থাৎ হচ্ছে পড়ো। কাজেই আমরা কথা তো সবাই বলি যে শিক্ষাই জাতির মেরুদণ্ড, কোরআনও এই কথা সবার প্রথম বলে ইকরা। দ্বিতীয় নাম্বার বিষয়, ইসলাম তথা কোরআনে এসেছে শুরা বা পরামর্শ ভিত্তিক গণতন্ত্রের উপর জোর দিয়েছে। কোরআন বলেছে ওয়া আমরুহুম শুরা বাইনাহুম। অতএব আমাদের শিক্ষা হবে জ্ঞান নির্ভর ও চাহিদা ভিত্তিক এবং রাজনীতি হবে অংশগ্রহণমূলক ও জনগণের কল্যাণমুখী। আসলে অনেক বিষয় যেগুলো আলোচনায় আনতে হয়, কিন্তু সময়ের খুবই স্বল্পতার কারণে সব বিষয়গুলো তুলে আনা সম্ভব না। তবে আমি সংক্ষিপ্ত 2টি পয়েন্ট বলতে চাই। এক হচ্ছে, বিগত সরকারের আমলে কওমি মাদ্রাসাকে সনদের স্বীকৃতি দিলেও কার্যত তা অকার্যকরী রয়ে গিয়েছে। যদি আমরা নির্বাচনের মধ্য দিয়ে একটি নির্বাচিত সরকারকে প্রতিষ্ঠিত করতে পারি, গণতান্ত্রিক সরকারকে রাষ্ট্র ব্যবস্থায় আমরা বসাতে পারি, আমরা আশা করি 50 লক্ষাধিক ছাত্ররা, আমাদের ছাত্রছাত্রীরা আমাদের কওমি মাদ্রাসা শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থায় পড়াশোনা করে, তাদের উচ্চ শিক্ষার ব্যবস্থা এবং সুন্দর কর্মসংস্থানের ব্যবস্থা হবে এবং এই মানুষগুলো মূলধারার সাথে সম্পৃক্ত হতে পারবে। সেজন্য আমরা এখানে খুবভাবে অনুভব করি যে একটি গণতান্ত্রিক শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা এবং গণতন্ত্র যদি ফিরে আসে, দেশের স্থিতিশীলতা ফিরে আসবে, নতুন শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থায় সমৃদ্ধ হবে এবং ইনশাআল্লাহ আমরা নতুন একটি সমৃদ্ধ জাতি পাবো, সেই প্রত্যাশা করছি। জাযাকুমুল্লাহু খায়রান। আসসালামু আলাইকুম ওয়া রাহমাতুল্লাহি ওয়া বারাকাতুহু।
Thank you, Shaikh Saad Madani, for your perspective. I think madrasas, as I mentioned before, is one of the key components of our education sector, and their voices need to be heard if we are to basically go for reform that's sustainable in the long term. I would now like to move on to our next speaker, who we all know, Dr. Mamun Ahmed, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor of University of Dhaka. Thank you.
Thank you, organizers, for organizing today's wonderful roundtable discussion. And also thank you for inviting me here. Honorable guests, discussants, and dear audience and friends from media, Assalamu alaikum, and very good noon to you all. I think the tone of the discussion is already set. It is, as I understand, it is mainly on the policy commitments on education and employment that is also included in the 31-point charter of BNP. I myself, I'm a teacher by profession, and I know I deal with these students for long. I know their aspirations, their frustrations. I know their experience, their expectations. So I'd like to make few remarks and comments on the basis of mainly on the paper on my personal experience, and of course also referring to the recent youth survey of Bangladesh. The student young community of Bangladesh is now going through they are basically in a juncture. I would say they are in pivotal juncture. In one hand, these young people, they are very ambitious, they are very connected. At the same time, they are very conscious about their rights. On the other hand, they are going through a very tough reality of shrinking economic and job opportunities. At the same time, very outdated education system, as they always say, and of course, a political system that basically does not include them, at least in their own terms, for sure. So this has created tension and of course frustration, and we have already seen the boiling point of this frustration a year ago during July 2024. So we need to address this generational discontent. What I'm trying to say, these challenges must be addressed because these young students, they are the main source of the capital, human capital for this country. Well, I have already gone through the 31-point charter that BNP is proposing, and some of these are related to the education and employment are really amazing. Of course, they're inspiring, and needless to say, these are realistic and of course rational. But I need to make a few comments on education and employability, referring to the survey report, recent survey report. See, there is a huge gap between education that we provide and employability. Only 13 to 14% of our young students, they find relevance of their studies, what they are studying, what they are learning, that is relevant to what they need for having a job. A startling 31%, they say what their education has no relevance with the job they are in. Meaning is, it is saying that this is the fundamental limitation and fundamental flaw in our education system. Meaning is, this education system and the training system does not fit with the need of the job market of the industries, what they need. So there is need for reformation of this education system. I'm happy that BNP have rightly pointed out this problem, and they're proposing to reform this education system, aiming to have skilled and very skillful workforce. That is, I think, amazing, and that basically bringing hope to the nation for sure. So, what is the key characteristics of this reformation can be? One important thing can be need-based education, that is for the secondary level. And that must include all these technical educations, all this information technology, and of course, need-based technical subjects should be included with that. I'm sure BNP will think and already thinking about it. One more thing is the knowledge-based education for the tertiary level students, for the tertiary level young students, what they need basically. As I said, there is a huge gap, mismatch between the content in their academia and the need of the industries. So we need to fill up that gap first. That is one issue. Another issue is there should be some facilities and initiatives to have higher research, because university is meant for not only for creating educated, skilled manpower, but also for researcher and also for creating the scholars of world level. So tertiary level education should have both notions, of course. Another important issue basically BNP is talking about is providing or committing employment allowance. Okay. Again, let me refer to another findings of the youth survey data. Alarming, 40% of the students, young students, they are entirely disengaged. Meaning is, they're not studying, they're not working, they're not even looking for a job, they're not looking for an employment. They're totally disengaged. Why they are disengaged? Because they are educated, but they don't have necessary skill to get employment. That's one point. And another one is, there is not enough job facilities for them. So these guys, these frustrated individuals, they form basically a ticking time bomb for the economy and for the society, for sure. And once again, BNP has rightly pointed out what I think BNP has rightly pointed out, and they have touched upon the gravity of this problem. And they're coming up with a policy recommendation to provide like employment allowances for this section of the youth. And that is very important. And this allowance, that means unemployment allowance, what they come in will be for 1 year or until they get a job. And during that time, what they will do, they will provide them with necessary skill training. So this will, one way, this will basically ease their financial burdens, and at the same time, this will basically help them to get encouraged again to look for a job, look for employment, for sure. One important issue is increased allocation. What BNP is promising in their 31% charter is increased allocation for the education sector. And they're promising 5%, which is way higher than what we are getting right at this moment. I think it is 2.5% right at this moment. And this is pretty close to the figure that UNESCO is proposing. That is amazing. And I'm sure that will help this country to create, to develop, and to have some real skilled, capable young workforce. Sure. Okay, I'm not going to take that much time. Just, I want to say a few things. Like the policy commitments that is basically reflected in the 31-point charter. some of these are wonderful, amazing for sure, but you need to include some more issues that I'm trying to say. One is inclusion of teaching of ethics, ethical and ethics and value system. You know, with more than 15 years of autocratic regime we were in, the country is witnessing erosion of values in the society, and the ethical standard is falling down. So we must restore it. For having this, we need to introduce ethical and moral teaching curriculum in right from the school, I think. And one more issue is growing concern about religion-based politics. This is a huge concern. And a majority of the young population, what they see, this is basically real concern. And they see it not suitable for the progressive phase of the Bangladesh and progressive future of the Bangladesh. So you need to come up with something to address these issues, ethical and value justice issues, and also for this religion-based political issues. That is basically huge concern right at this moment. Finally, I would say a few words about the issue of democracy and the political issues. The young people, basically, what we encounter with, they see all the discrepancies and inequalities in the economy and in the society. These are basically a reflection of the malaise, deep-rooted malaise in the politics and governance system that must be corrected. And the education, as far as this education, the politics within the education, with the educational institutions are concerned, that must be addressed. Of course, you have to address it putting pragmatic policy, and you have to have very pragmatic policy to deal with this. One interesting figure came out, again, reference to the survey, that is, the students, the young students, they were at the center point of the revolution last year. But still, most of the students want to remain disengaged and alienated about politics. But what they want political parties to listen to them, to be connected with them. These students, young students, want political parties. They will be heard. Political parties will listen to them. Political parties will value to their opinions, and of course, will act upon. If that can be done, and the recommendations and the policy issues that are coming up is materialized, implemented properly, we can definitely expect for fair, inclusive Bangladesh. Thank you. Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you, Dr. Mamun Ahmed. I think you raised a very key point about education in ethics and values, which I think is something that we can consider. And also, I think most of our speakers have echoed one key point, which is the relevance and importance of democracy in having a vibrant education system that is for the people and that will take the country forward. I would like to now move on to our final speaker. Today is also World Teachers' Day, which is a very significant day, and I would like to basically give my respect and on behalf of our team to all the teachers around the world who work very hard every day to make us better human beings. My teachers and our teachers in the past who has built our character. So this is a very significant day. Now I would like to move on to our final speaker. Should have a big round of applause for all the teachers around the world. Now I'd like to move on to our last speaker of the day, Dr. A.S.M. Amanullah, who is the Honorable Vice Chancellor of National University, to make his speech and give us some valuable insights as well. Thank you.
Respected Chair, panelists, distinguished guests, journalists, good afternoon. There are some privileges to speak at the last, and there are some negative points too. That lots of points I wanted to discuss or I discussed already. Now, tell me some of the hard realities of the education sector of this country. I am currently now leading the second largest public university of the world, having 4 million students and around 2,500 affiliated institutions and colleges around the country. All the B.Ed colleges, law colleges, science and technology institutes, all the science colleges, military colleges, the sports colleges, they belong to the National University of Bangladesh. And almost every year we produce around 1 million students graduated from the National University of Bangladesh, almost around 1 million students. And you will be surprised to know around 300,000 of those 1 million are being unemployed. And after 10 years, it's been around 3 million students unemployed in Bangladesh. And try to understand what are the reasons behind this. One of the reasons is the absence of industry-academia linkage. It's virtually nil in Bangladesh. And what happened for the last decade is simply a massacre. There was no change in the syllabus. There was no change in the pedagogy, classroom teaching, or in those areas. With the current syllabus we have in the National University or the public universities of this country, we are talking about to combat the fourth industrial revolution. With the current syllabus, even Bangladesh is not ready to combat the challenges of first industrial revolution. And we are talking about the fourth industrial revolution. And as a result, we did very well in the MDG, Millennium Development Goal, and we missed almost all indicators of SDGs, almost all indicators of Sustainable Development Goals in Bangladesh. In this situation, the National University has taken some steps to work with the UNICEF, A2I, National Skill Development Authority. We did some MOUs with the China, Japan. We started working with the Salford University, Manchester. We started working with the Saudi Arabia, Technical and Vocational Training Education of Saudi Arabia. As you know, after 2026, the Gulf states, they won't accept any unskilled level. And in that situation, Bangladesh is in serious threat of exporting laborers in the Gulf states. We usually send around 1 million, the workforce around the world, and around 70–80% they go to the Gulf states. Considering those situations, the National University has taken a decision to introduce ICT in their syllabus and English as a mandatory course. And we already started ICT as a mandatory course in almost all areas of our courses. We offer around 30 undergraduate courses, around 25 post-graduation courses. And you'll be surprised to know the students, they accepted ICT and English as a mandatory course, they well accepted. There was a doubt that they might resist. No, the students didn't resist. They just accepted. It means the students are ready to be trained. And I just visited the USA last week, and we made some contract with the New Haven University Johns Hopkins University, and the City University, New York. And you'll be surprised to know the way they change their syllabus is almost 100% industry academia linkages. They don't teach any subject which do not have any industry academia linkages. I visited Japan last year, China, almost similar situation. And you'll be surprised to know with the same GDP per capita, with the same per capita income before 1971 or after 1971, after the independence of this country, we started with the same per capita income. Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, China, almost similar. It's around $400 per capita income. And for the last 53 years, the Singapore has become one of the highest per capita income in the world. China has become one of the superpowers. And the South Korea, and you see the progress of the Malaysia and in other parts of this region. And in 1994, Professor Wahidul Haq is an acclaimed economist working in the UNDP. In 1994, he said, if you invest $1 in the education sector, it will come around with the $300 after 1 decade. And that formula followed by the Singapore, the Malaysia, the China, the Japan. I'm giving you an example. The City University I visited last week, they spent $2 billion just to renovate a physics lab. They produced 16 Nobel laureates. The City College of New York, they produced 16 Nobel laureates. So we need investment. With 1.7% of the GDP, with the investing 1.7% of the GDP, if you want to change the education system of this country, impossible. It is simply impossible. It's not possible. You are treating the primary education teacher as a third-class employee and asking him to produce a first-class citizen for this country. It is totally impossible. So these are the issues we need to discuss. These are the issues we need to bring into the table. So you see, currently we have around 130 million people working overseas. In the Gulf states, is around 100 million only in the Gulf states, and they send around $50 billion as a remittance. $25 billion is in the bank, and $25 billion as an informal way. We call it as a hundi. Only one skill, only one soft skill, if you could provide to those who are going to overseas every year, around 1 million expatriate workers from Bangladesh, and if their salary is around 50% increase, we are going there with the 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 taka, $300, $400 per month. And even the Nepal, the workers from Nepal and the Sri Lanka and India, 3 times, they charge 3 times. If we could train them with a single soft skill, that $50 billion could be $100 billion in the next 5-6 years of time. The foreign remittance. These are the areas we overlooked for the last one decade. And we talked about the development. We talked about development of pillars. So we consider pillars, if there are so many pillars, there is a development. The development, the real development is investing in the education. You look China, you look Japan, you look South Korea. And I gave you the names of some other countries at the same time we evaluated, the investment they made. We have teachers, I have teachers. I have millions of teachers around the country, the 495 upazilas. They are working in the honors master's colleges without any MPOs. They are working there with only 5, 6, 10,000 BD taka. It's $100, not even $100 per month. They are teaching in the colleges, honors, masters. How come they could produce the world-class citizens? These are the areas we need to discuss. We need to bring into the table. I believe, as I met several times the late Shaykh President Ziaur Rahman, I have had the privilege to meet him several times. I have had the privilege to meet Begum Khaleda Zia several times. I met the acting chairman of BNP, a couple of months ago in London. As I understand from their perception, from their ideas, from their dedication towards this country, if these people could get a chance to run this country, the way they are designing now the education system, it could produce one of the best education systems in the world. But we must give them the chance and the money required. We must give them the chance and the money required. We need $300 to achieve the SDGs. Currently we have only $1. How come we will achieve the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals? So is there any money? Yes, money is there. I am working with the UNICEF, they are giving us some money. I talked to the World Bank and ADB, money is not a problem. The problem is the accountability and the good governance. We just finished a $250 million project at the National University of Bangladesh. It's a $250 million project we just finished last year. And they're ready to give us another $500 million for next program. The money is not a problem. Money is there. But the question of accountability and good governance is a big issue. It's a big issue for education sector in Bangladesh. We are spending around a couple of billions of dollars for the monthly payment MPO sector in Bangladesh. And now is the time to assess why we are spending those billions of dollars every month, every year, and for what reasons, if there is no industry academia linkage in our education. So these are the areas. I had a very tough time to work with the National University of Bangladesh for the last 1 year. I tried my level best. The education system there is primordial. We are reforming their syllabuses and everything. We are reforming the exam systems. We are reforming the other pedagogical aspects. And I'm getting some suggestions and ideas from the BNP's top ranking officials, and I'm very grateful and thankful to them that I'm getting support from them. And without any political will and without any political support, whatever we do in the education sector or in the health sector, in other sector in Bangladesh, without political support, it's not sustainable anymore. So if we want to change the fate of this country, we must follow the Professor Wahidul Haq's the notion of development, investing in the education and health. So investing in the education and health, you will get the next Singapore, you will get the next Malaysia, you will get the next South Korea, you will get the next Japan. There is no point that we are lagging behind. We did follow a very wrong way of development. In those areas, we need your support at the National University of Bangladesh. We started working with the tape. Somebody said here with the tape. From the back, he said about tape of Australia. We started working with the tape. The tape model is a very important, nice model, like the British Technical Education Boards. We're talking with the British Technical Education Boards also. So year 8, we will start year 8, and the dropout students, there will be some diploma, HND, certificate 1, certificate 2 courses, micro-credential programs for them. And of those who are studying the honors masters, they will get with their own degree, they will get an extra certificate on in any area they choose from the basket. So that could be a solution for the higher education for reforming the higher education of this country. Again, I must say this is a very complex area. What we did to the education for the last 1 decade is simply a massacre. We just destroyed the higher education system of this country. And we often call the higher education is a fundamental right. A higher education is not a fundamental right. Even it's not a human right. You can talk about the primary education, secondary education, you can talk about fundamental rights, human rights, that's fine. The higher education is a choice. So if you want to bring change in the higher education, you must involve the stakeholders, you must motivate the parents, you must choose the correct pathway how to develop your program following the other countries who already did very good in the higher education. Thank you very much for inviting me here. And sometimes I use some of the emotional stuff, but I must say we must look forward, and as I believe the Bangladesh Nationalist Party is very committed and dedicated towards the common people of this country. Under their leadership, we may expect a change in the higher education of this country. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Esama Amanullah, for your valuable speech. With this, we will be concluding our event for the day. But just to sum up some of the key points and some clarifications, I think one of the key things that has come up in all our speakers in their speeches is that over the years, resource mobilization has one of the key challenges for the education sector. That's why Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP, talks about 5% GDP allocation for the education sector. I know it's an aspirational figure, but it is an aspirational figure, and we have to be aspirational. We must aim high to achieve anything. So that's why I think, and also it emphasizes our stress on this sector, how important the sector is for us, and it's a priority sector for us. And also stress on need-based and knowledge-based education, which all our speakers have stressed on. That's one of the principles of BNP's education policy. If you look at our track record, we have tried our best to achieve this principle, and we will be working in the future to achieve this principle, where we have education system which keeps up with time, which benefits our population, educates our youth, and also a huge emphasis on research and development and skill development. Because with times, I think we need to basically, the issue of upskilling, reskilling is something that we're seriously considering as a party, to have our youth prepared for the future and for the present, and also develop new sectors so they're capable and to get a demographic dividend, which is a huge size of this population. I think the youth now, if you look at the age of 15 to 29, is almost 30% of our population, which is a significant figure. And if we are to build the nation, we need to integrate them. And we need to have a vibrant, sustainable education system to make our youth and our general population a capable one, and hopefully a sustainable education sector which will benefit all people from all walks of life in our country. With this, I would like to thank our speakers for giving their valuable inputs today, and we will also, it's a sort of like a stakeholder consultation, so we have a lot of new inputs which we can bring into our policy and think about and consider. And I thank you all for being patient. Please don't go away. We have arrangement for lunch, so please bear with us, and hopefully we'll see you in the future. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.